Among the vast expanse of space, Captain Daho Park's heart raced as he gazed through the reinforced windows of the galactic research vessel Stellar Wind. The ship's sleek design cut silently through the darkness, its advanced sensors probing the mysteries ahead. 3 months of following unusual energy readings had led his team to this remote corner of space, far from the familiar territories of the Andromeda Scientific Coalition. The captain's weathered face reflected in the glass as he watched the distant stars. His years of experience had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, they were telling him something extraordinary awaited them. The ship's crew, mainly composed of archaeologists and researchers, worked diligently at their stations, their quiet focus broken only by the soft hum of equipment. Science Officer Jia Li approached the captain, her data pad clutched tightly in her delicate hands. Like all members of her species, she possessed sensitive antennae that served as additional sensory organs. These now twitched with barely contained excitement as she reviewed the latest readings. "Captain," she called out, her voice steady despite her obvious enthusiasm. "You need to see these numbers." She handed him the data pad, its screen displaying a complex array of energy signatures that pulsed with rhythmic patterns. "These readings are unlike anything we've encountered before. The energy output is massive. It's as if we're detecting the power of a small star, but it's clearly artificial in nature." Daho studied the readings carefully, his experienced eyes noting patterns that spoke of intelligent design. As their ship drew closer to the source, the crew's excitement grew. They were approaching a solar system that seemed ordinary at first glance, a yellow star similar to countless others they had cataloged. But as they entered its outer boundaries, the true nature of their discovery began to unfold. The ship's advanced sensors detected a network of artificial structures orbiting a beautiful blue-green planet, the third from its sun. These weren't simple satellites or space stations. They were seeing massive platforms, each one larger than any space construction their civilization had ever attempted. The structures formed intricate geometric patterns around the planet, connected by invisible lines of energy that their instruments struggled to classify. "Full scan of the system," Daho ordered, his voice calm but filled with authority. The crew responded immediately, their fingers dancing across control panels as they directed every sensor they had toward the remarkable discovery before them. As the data poured in, Jiayan's antennae began moving in complex patterns that indicated intense concentration. "Captain, we're detecting automated defense platforms. They appear to be in a dormant state, but they're definitely active. There are sentinel vessels patrolling predetermined routes, all unmanned, all incredibly advanced." The ship's main screen displayed a tactical overview of the system. Red dots indicated the positions of defensive installations, while blue lines traced the patrol routes of the sentinel ships. The pattern they formed was both beautiful and intimidating, a perfect dance of military precision that had likely continued uninterrupted for an unimaginable length of time. As the stellar wind moved closer to the inner system, something unexpected happened. Space itself seemed to ripple, and suddenly, holographic warnings blazed to life around their ship. The messages appeared in dozens of languages, some recognized by their translation matrix, others completely unknown. The known languages ranged from ancient to modern, each delivering the same clear message. They were approaching a protected system. "These warnings," Jiayan observed, her voice filled with wonder, "they're not just simple broadcasts. They're analyzing our ship, adapting their message to languages we might understand. This technology is responding to us in real time." Captain Daho stood at his command station, his mind racing with possibilities. In all his years of exploration, he had never encountered anything like this. The sophistication of the defensive network, the scale of the constructions, the sheer power being generated, all of it pointed to a civilization far more advanced than their own. "Begin recording everything," he commanded. "Every sensor reading, every energy signature, every detail of these structures. Whatever built this, whoever they were, they left behind something incredible." He paused, watching as another patrol of sentinel ships passed silently by their position, and they clearly meant for it to last. The crew worked with focused intensity, their instruments capturing data that would be studied for years to come. They had found something unprecedented. A solar system transformed into a vast, automated fortress by an unknown civilization. As they continued their careful approach, none of them could shake the feeling that they weren't just observing ancient history. They were being observed in return. The holographic warnings continued to adapt and change, becoming more specific to their vessel and crew with each passing moment. It was clear that whatever intelligence governed this system was awakening to their presence, measuring them, judging them. Captain Deho could only wonder what would happen when it finally decided to make direct contact. The gentle hum of research equipment filled the observation lab as Chief Researcher Hansol Kim studied the holographic display before him. For 3 weeks, the stellar wind had maintained a careful distance from the mysterious defensive network, gathering data that left the entire research team in awe. Hansol adjusted his viewing angle, his experienced eyes taking in every detail of the massive constructs that floated silently in space. The structures were beautiful in their complexity, geometric shapes that seemed to follow some grand design beyond their current understanding. His team had been working around the clock, analyzing every piece of data they could gather without triggering the system's more aggressive defensive protocols. "Look at this," he said, gesturing to his colleagues gathered around the display. "These aren't just random placements. Each structure is positioned with perfect mathematical precision." He pointed to one of the larger platforms, its surface gleaming with a material they couldn't identify. "They're preserving something, protecting it with a level of dedication we've never seen before." The research team had learned to be cautious with their probes and scans. Their first attempts to gather detailed information had been met with elegant but firm countermeasures. Each time they tried to push deeper into the system, the defensive network responded with increasingly sophisticated methods to block their efforts. It was like playing chess with an opponent who was always several moves ahead. Young analyst Su Jin Choi sat at her station, her eyes fixed on the streams of data flowing across her screens. She had been tracking the movement patterns of the defensive platforms for days, looking for any hint of predictability. Her determination had paid off in unexpected ways. "Everyone, come see this," she called out, her voice filled with excitement. The other researchers gathered around her station as she pulled up a time-lapse display of the defense grid's movements. "Watch how they move. It's not random at all. These platforms are following carefully planned patrol routes." The team watched in fascination as Sujin's display showed weeks of movement compressed into minutes. The defensive platforms moved like dancers in a cosmic ballet, each one following precise paths that created overlapping fields of coverage. No sector of space was ever left unguarded for more than a few moments. As they expanded their observation range, they made another startling discovery. The red planet they recognized as Mars showed signs of extensive colonization, with similar defensive networks protecting what appeared to be massive underground complexes. The same pattern repeated around several moons of the giant planets Jupiter and Saturn, each colony site protected by its own grid of sentinels and defensive platforms. "The scale of this is incredible," Hansol remarked, studying the new data. "To maintain such a comprehensive defense system across an entire solar system, whoever built this had resources and technology far beyond anything we can imagine." The team worked to map the defensive protocols, noting how each sector of space was protected by overlapping layers of security. The platforms didn't just guard fixed positions, they adapted their movements based on potential threats, maintaining optimal coverage at all times. It was a military doctrine executed with perfect precision, operating continuously for what must have been an extremely long time. One day, during a routine scan, their instruments detected something new. Deep within one of the Martian colonies, they found evidence of massive energy signatures, carefully shielded from casual observation. The readings suggested some kind of advanced power generation system, still operating after countless years. "These colonies," Sujin observed, "they're not abandoned. They're dormant, waiting for something. She pulled up more detailed scans of the energy readings. Look at how stable these power levels are. Whatever technology they're using, it's designed to last for ages without maintenance. Hansol spent hours studying the new data, his mind trying to grasp the implications. The defensive grid wasn't just protecting empty space or abandoned colonies. It was preserving something valuable, something its creators considered worth protecting for what could be thousands or even millions of years. The mystery deepened when they detected similar energy signatures throughout the system. Each colony, each defensive platform, each automated sentry, all were powered by the same incredibly efficient energy source. It spoke of a civilization that had not only mastered advanced technology, but had found ways to make it virtually eternal. As the research team continued their observations, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were looking at something more than just an ancient defense system. These silent guardians were protecting a legacy, preserving the achievements of a civilization that had planned for the long term in ways that boggled the mind. Whatever they were protecting, Hansol said softly, watching another patrol of sentinel ships pass by, whatever they built all this to preserve, they meant it to last until someone worthy came to find it. He turned to his team, his eyes bright with determination. And I believe we're getting closer to understanding what that might be. The discovery happened almost by accident. The research team had been scanning one of Mars' smaller moons when their instruments detected a faint power signature deep within its rocky surface. After careful consideration and approval from Captain Daho, they sent a small probe to investigate. Research Director Min-Ho Kang watched the probe's feed with growing excitement as it revealed an entrance hidden beneath layers of dust and rock. The doorway opened with surprising ease, responding to signals that their probe was accidentally producing. Inside, they found what appeared to be an ancient data storage facility. "This is remarkable," Min-Ho said, his fingers moving quickly across his control panel as he directed the probe deeper into the facility. The environmental systems are still functioning perfectly. The air inside is clean and maintained at ideal conditions for preserving electronic equipment. The facility's interior was a marvel of engineering. Rows of crystalline structures lined the walls, glowing with a soft blue light that pulsed in steady rhythms. The probe's sensors indicated that these crystals were actually sophisticated data storage devices, still actively maintaining their contents after an unimaginable span of time. It took Min-Ho and his team 3 days to establish a safe connection to the facility's systems. When they finally managed to access the data, what they found left them speechless. The information was stored in multiple formats, carefully organized to be understandable to any species capable of reaching this point. "Everyone, gather around." Min-Ho called out to the assembled crew in the main research lab. His usually calm voice trembled with excitement. "We've managed to decode the first sections of data. The beings who built all this, they called themselves humans." The crew watched in amazement as images and text appeared on their screens, telling the story of a remarkable species. The data showed humanity's evolution from primitive beings to space travelers, their first tentative steps into their solar system, and their gradual expansion across their world and beyond. "Look at this," Min-Ho said, bringing up a timeline of human technological development. Their progress was extraordinary. They went from basic rocket technology to quantum mechanics in just a few centuries. Their understanding of artificial intelligence grew at an even faster rate. The data revealed how humans had faced and overcome countless challenges. They had solved their energy needs, learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level, and developed artificial intelligence that worked in perfect harmony with human consciousness. But the most fascinating discovery was yet to come. Su-Jin Choi, who had been quietly analyzing the separate section of data, suddenly straightened in her chair. "Director Kang, you need to see this," she called out. Her screen showed detailed records of what appeared to be humanity's final and greatest transformation. The records documented humanity's gradual transition from purely biological beings to something far more advanced. They had found ways to merge their consciousness with their artificial intelligence systems, creating a new form of existence that combined the best aspects of both. They didn't vanish, Su Jin said, her voice filled with wonder. They evolved into something beyond physical form. All these defenses, these installations we've been studying, they're not protecting empty space. They're protecting the vast network that houses their transformed civilization. Minho spent hours studying the technical details of this transformation. The humans had developed ways to transfer their consciousness into complex quantum matrices, creating a form of digital existence that preserved their individual identities while allowing them to expand their capabilities far beyond biological limits. The defensive network they had been observing took on new meaning. It wasn't just a military installation. It was protecting the infrastructure that supported an entire transcended species. The energy signatures they had detected were powering the systems that maintained countless human minds in their new digital form. The scope of this is incredible, Minho told his captivated audience. They didn't just preserve their knowledge. They preserved their entire civilization. Every defense platform, every colony, every installation we've observed is part of a vast network supporting their continued existence. The data revealed that humanity had planned this transformation carefully over many generations. They had built their defensive networks to last for eons, protecting their digital civilization while they waited for other species to reach a level of development where meaningful contact would be possible. As the research team continued to study the data, they found themselves filled with a profound sense of humility. They had expected to find remnants of an ancient civilization, but instead, they had discovered one that had transcended the very boundaries of physical existence. "They're still here," Minho said softly, watching the steady pulse of the data crystals. Watching, waiting, protecting their achievements until they find others ready to understand what they've become. He turned to his team, his eyes bright with the magnitude of their discovery. "And I believe they're waiting to see what we'll do with this knowledge." It started with a subtle change in the defensive grid's energy readings. Chief Engineer Tai Yong Song was conducting routine system checks when he noticed the first anomalies. The steady patterns they had been monitoring for weeks began to shift, like ripples spreading across a calm pond. "Something's happening," Tai Yong announced, his fingers moving rapidly across his control panel. The main display showed increasing energy levels throughout the network they had been studying. The automated platforms they had grown familiar with were becoming more active, their movements more purposeful. Captain Deho stepped onto the bridge just as the first major change occurred. A section of space near Earth's orbit seemed to bend and twist, creating what looked like a tear in the fabric of reality itself. The crew watched in stunned silence as something massive emerged from the distortion. "By the stars," Tai Yong whispered, his eyes wide with amazement. A vessel was appearing through the spatial anomaly, its size defying comprehension. It was larger than any of Earth's moons, its surface covered in patterns that pulsed with energy. The ship's design was unlike anything they had ever seen, suggesting capabilities far beyond their understanding. But this was only the beginning. More spatial distortions began appearing throughout the system. From each one emerged another massive vessel, their movements coordinated with perfect precision. The ships took up defensive positions around Earth, forming a pattern that complemented the existing defensive grid. "Captain," Tai Yong called out, his voice steady despite his excitement. "These ships, they're generating power readings that exceed our entire fleet combined. And their hull material, our sensors can't even identify what it's made of." The bridge crew worked at their stations, attempting to gather as much data as possible about these incredible vessels. Each ship seemed to be a self-contained world, with systems and technologies that operated on principles they couldn't begin to comprehend. "This isn't a graveyard," Captain Deho said, his voice filled with realization. "It's a sleeping giant, and we just woke it up." He watched as another massive ship emerged, its surface gleaming with the same mysterious material they had observed on the defensive platforms. The defensive grid they had spent weeks studying now seemed almost primitive compared to these new arrivals. The automated platforms and sentinel ships adjusted their patterns, integrating seamlessly with the movements of the massive vessels. It was becoming clear that what they had observed before was merely the outer layer of a much larger defensive system. More ships continued to appear, each one demonstrating capabilities that seemed to ignore the normal laws of physics. Some moved without any visible means of propulsion, while others seemed to phase in and out of normal space at will. The crew observed in amazed silence as these vessels performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. "Look at this," Tai Yong said, bringing up detailed scans on the main screen. "These ships aren't just defensive platforms. They're carrying what appears to be entire cities within them. The energy signatures suggest massive internal spaces, all maintained in perfect condition." The initial fear that had gripped the crew began to fade, replaced by a sense of wonder. Despite their obvious military capability, the vessels made no aggressive moves toward the stellar wind. Instead, they seemed to be taking up predetermined positions, as if following a plan laid down ages ago. "The data we found in the Martian facility," Tai Yong mused, studying the readings from his instruments. "It mentioned humanity's transformation into a digital state. These ships must be part of the infrastructure supporting their new form of existence." Captain Daho nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. They built all this not just to protect themselves, but to maintain their civilization. These ships aren't just weapons. They're worlds unto themselves, housing countless minds in their digital form. The display of power continued as more ships emerged, each one taking its place in the growing formation around Earth. The coordination between vessels was perfect, suggesting a level of control and communication far beyond anything their own civilization had achieved. "Sir," Tai Yong called out, his voice urgent but controlled. "We're detecting energy buildups in several of the vessels. They appear to be establishing some kind of network between themselves." The main screen showed lines of energy connecting the massive ships, forming a complex web that spanned the entire system. The crew of the Stellar Wind found themselves witnessing something unprecedented, the awakening of a civilization that had transformed itself into something beyond their comprehension. The defensive grid they had initially discovered was just the surface layer, a simple watchdog system compared to the true extent of humanity's preparations. As they watched another ship emerge from its spatial distortion, Captain Daho couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and humility. They had come seeking signs of an ancient civilization, only to find one that had evolved far beyond their expectations, waiting patiently for the right moment to reveal itself. "Prepare all research systems," he ordered, his voice steady. "Whatever happens next, we need to record everything we can. We're witnessing something historic." The crew responded with quiet efficiency, their instruments gathering data that would be studied for generations to come. The bridge of the Stellar Wind had fallen into a respectful silence as the crew watched the massive ships continue their precise movements through space. The quiet was broken by a soft chime from the communications console, a sound that made every crew member turn their heads in surprise. "Captain," the communications officer called out, her voice trembling slightly, "we're receiving a transmission. It's encoded in perfect coalition standard." The officer's fingers moved across her console, her eyes widening as she analyzed the incoming signal. The complexity of the encoding. It's beyond anything in our database. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a message that scrolled across in clear, precise text. "Greetings, travelers. I am Administrator Jin Wu Li of the Terran Defense Network. You've shown admirable restraint in your exploration." Before anyone could respond, a holographic figure materialized in the center of the bridge. The image was clearly designed with careful consideration. The being appeared familiar enough to put the crew at ease, while maintaining features that marked it as distinctly human. Administrator Li stood before them, his form shifting slightly as if made of light and shadow. "We welcome you to Earth's solar system," the administrator continued, his voice carrying a warmth that seemed to fill the bridge. Your approach and careful study of our outer defenses has not gone unnoticed. We have been monitoring your activities with great interest." Captain Deho stepped forward, maintaining his composure despite the extraordinary situation. "Administrator, we are honored by your contact. We had no idea we would find such an advanced civilization here." The holographic figure smiled, the expression somehow both alien and familiar. "Humanity has been waiting a very long time for contact with species capable of reaching our home. Your methods of exploration and your respect for the unknown marked you as worthy of direct communication." Over the next hours, the crew learned the truth about what humanity had become. Administrator Lee explained how their species had evolved beyond physical form, transforming themselves into a hybrid consciousness that existed within vast networks of quantum processors and energy matrices. "What you see around you," Lee gestured to the massive ships visible through the bridge windows, "is just the physical infrastructure that supports our current form of existence. We maintain these vessels and defensive systems not out of fear, but as a means of preserving our civilization while we continue to grow and evolve." The crew listened in fascination as Lee described how humanity had achieved this transformation. It had been a gradual process, spanning generations, as they learned to transfer human consciousness into digital form, while preserving the essential qualities that made them human. "Our minds now exist in a state that your language might struggle to describe," Lee explained. "We experience reality in ways that would have been impossible in our biological forms, yet we maintain our connection to our origins and our humanity." Questions came from various crew members, each answered with patience and clarity. They learned that the massive ships served as both defensive platforms and housing for the vast quantum networks that contained human consciousness. Each vessel was a world unto itself, carrying millions of minds within its digital spaces. "The defensive grid you initially discovered," Lee continued, "serves as an outer boundary, designed to protect our civilization, while also testing the capabilities and intentions of any visitors. Your careful and respectful approach told us much about your species." The holographic form moved around the bridge, examining the crew's stations with interest. "We have watched countless civilizations rise among the stars. Some have passed by our system without noticing us. Others have proven themselves not yet ready for contact. You are among the few who have demonstrated both the technological capability and the wisdom to warrant direct communication." As the conversation continued, the crew began to understand the true scale of what they had discovered. Humanity hadn't just built a defensive network, they had created a vast, living system that preserved their civilization while allowing them to explore new forms of existence. "Your arrival marks the beginning of a new phase," Administrator Lee announced. "We have much to share with your people if you are willing to learn. Our transformation has given us insights into the nature of consciousness and reality that we believe could benefit other species." The crew of the Stellar Wind found themselves at the threshold of something extraordinary. They had come seeking signs of an ancient civilization, only to find one that had evolved into something far beyond their expectations. The massive ships around them weren't just defensive platforms. They were gateways to a form of existence they were only beginning to comprehend. Captain Deho looked at the holographic figure of Administrator Lee, then at his crew, seeing the same mix of awe and excitement in their expressions that he felt himself. They all knew that this moment marked the beginning of a journey that would change their civilization forever. The following days aboard the Stellar Wind became a journey of endless discovery. The crew watched in amazement as Administrator Jinwoo revealed more about humanity's true capabilities, each demonstration more incredible than the last. The vast ships that surrounded them were just the beginning of what humanity had achieved in their long evolution. "Let me show you something," Administrator Jinwoo said one morning, his holographic form gesturing towards the main view screen. The display came alive with images that made the crew gasp in wonder. They watched as a simulation showed one of the massive human vessels seemingly fold space around itself, crossing vast distances in the blink of an eye. "Our ships don't simply travel through space," Jinwoo explained, his voice carrying a hint of pride. They manipulate the fabric of reality itself. What might take your vessels years to cross, we can traverse in moments. The simulation continued, showing how the ships could move between galaxies as easily as stepping through a doorway. Chief Engineer Tai Yong Song leaned forward at his station, his eyes wide with wonder. The energy requirements for such travel must be enormous, he said, his mind already trying to understand the principles involved. Jin Wu nodded, appreciating the engineer's insight. We learned to harness energy sources that your civilization has yet to discover. Our power generation systems tap into the fundamental forces of the universe itself. The demonstrations continued throughout the day. The crew watched simulations of defensive systems that could predict and counter attacks before they even began, weapons that could reshape matter at its most basic level, and shields that existed partially outside normal spacetime. We maintained these capabilities not because we seek conflict, Jin Wu explained as he showed them another simulation, but because we learned early in our development that not all species share our dedication to peaceful cooperation. Some react to advanced civilization with fear or aggression. The crew observed how human defensive systems could neutralize entire attacking fleets without destroying them, using technology that simply rendered weapons and propulsion systems inoperable. It was defense in its purest form, protection without destruction. 500,000 years of development, Captain Daho mused, watching the displays. It's hard to imagine such a span of time. Jin Wu's holographic form smiled. Time means something different to us now. In our digital form, we can process thousands of years of research in what you would consider moments. Every day brings new discoveries, new understandings. The administrator showed them how human consciousness now existed within vast quantum networks, allowing them to think and perceive in ways that would have been impossible in biological form. They could experience multiple realities simultaneously, process information at incredible speeds, and share knowledge instantly across their entire civilization. Your own civilization stands at a crossroads similar to where we once stood, Jin Wu observed, studying the crew's reactions. You have begun to explore the possibilities of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and consciousness transfer. We watched your development with great interest. The simulations continued, showing how human technology could create and maintain stable wormholes, manipulate gravity as easily as the crew might shake clay, and even influence the flow of time itself. Each revelation left the crew more amazed than the last. We share this with you, Jin Wu explained, not to overwhelm, but to help you understand the path that lies ahead. Your civilization has shown the potential to achieve similar developments, given time and guidance. The crew spent hours asking questions, their natural scientific curiosity overcoming their initial awe. Jin Wu answered each query patiently, often demonstrating concepts through detailed simulations that helped bridge the gap between their current understanding and human capabilities. Your defensive fleet, Captain Daho noted, it's more than just military power. It's a testament to your species' evolution. Jin Wu nodded approvingly. The ships you see around you are both our guardians and our homes. They contain vast digital spaces where millions of human minds exist, explore, and continue to evolve. Each vessel is a world unto itself, a perfect blend of defensive capability and living space. As the day drew to a close, the crew found themselves reflecting on everything they had learned. The technology they had been shown went beyond mere advancement. It represented a fundamental shift in what they thought possible. There is so much more to show you, Jin Wu said, his form glowing softly in the dimmed bridge lighting. This is just the beginning of what we hope will be a long and beneficial relationship between our peoples. Your curiosity and wisdom have shown us that you are ready for the next step in your evolution. The crew of the Stellar Wind knew they were witnessing something that would change their civilization forever. They had not just found an advanced species, they had discovered mentors who could guide them toward a future they had barely dared to imagine. The final days of their historic mission brought a mix of excitement and reflection to the crew of the Stellar Wind. The massive human ships still surrounded them, their presence both reassuring and awe-inspiring. Administrator Jin Woo's holographic form had become a familiar sight on the bridge, his patient explanations helping the crew understand the profound nature of their discovery. On the morning of their planned departure, Jin Woo appeared with an announcement that would change everything. His form seemed to glow with particular brightness as he addressed the assembled crew. "Your time here has proven what we hoped to find," he said, his voice carrying through the quiet bridge. "The Coalition has demonstrated not just technological capability, but the wisdom and patience needed for the next step in cosmic evolution. Therefore, on behalf of humanity, we would like to extend a formal invitation." The crew listened intently as Jin Woo explained the offer. Humanity would share their knowledge with the Coalition, guiding them along the path of advancement, while helping them avoid the pitfalls that often came with rapid technological development. Captain Daeho stood at attention, fully aware of the historic nature of this moment. "Administrator, on behalf of the Coalition, we would be honored to accept this invitation. The knowledge we've gained here already exceeds our greatest expectations." Su Jin Choi watched from her station, her mind processing everything they had learned. She had spent countless hours analyzing the human defensive systems, and something important had occurred to her. Looking up from her displays, she spoke softly but clearly. "They could have conquered the galaxy if they wanted to," she said, drawing everyone's attention. "With their technology, no civilization could have stood against them. But instead, they chose to wait, to watch and wait for someone worthy to find them." Jin Woo's holographic form turned to her, a gentle smile on his face. "Your observation shows wisdom, Analyst Choi. Power without wisdom leads only to destruction. We learned long ago that true advancement comes not from dominance, but from cooperation and mutual growth." The crew spent their final hours in Earth's solar system preparing for their return journey. Their databanks were filled with information that humanity had deemed appropriate to share at this stage, enough to begin the Coalition's journey toward advancement, but not so much that it would overwhelm them. "Remember," Jin Woo told them, "what you have seen here is just the beginning. Your civilization stands at the threshold of remarkable possibilities. We will guide you, but the journey must be your own." As the stellar wind made final preparations to depart, Captain Daeho stood at his command station, looking out at the massive human ships. He thought about how their mission had started, a simple investigation of unusual energy readings, and how it had led to the most important discovery in Coalition history. "Our report to the Coalition Council will change everything," he said to his crew. "We came looking for signs of ancient civilization, but we found something far more significant. We found our future." The human ships began to move, creating a passage for the stellar wind's departure. It was like watching a dance of giants, each vessel moving with impossible grace despite its enormous size. Administrator Jin Woo's holographic form remained on the bridge for these final moments. "We will be watching and waiting," he said. "When you return home, share what you have learned. Prepare your people for the journey ahead. The path of advancement lies open before you." As the stellar wind moved away from Earth's solar system, the crew watched the massive human ships begin to fade from view. Some seemed to fold back into their space-time distortions, while others simply vanished, returning to their eternal vigil. Their journey home would take several weeks, giving them time to process everything they had experienced. They had witnessed technology that seemed like magic, met beings who had transcended physical form, and been offered a chance to follow a similar path. The crew knew their report would spark intense discussion and debate within the Coalition. They had discovered not just an advanced civilization, but mentors who could guide them toward a future they had barely imagined possible. As the last signs of the human defense network faded from their sensors, Captain Daeho made a final entry in his log. "We came seeking knowledge of the past, but found instead a glimpse of the future. Humanity has not only survived, they have evolved into something remarkable. And now, they offer to show us the way. This is not the end of our journey, but rather the beginning of something far greater than we ever imagined." The stellar wind continued its journey home, carrying with it the seeds of a new era in galactic history. Their discovery would open the door to advancement beyond their wildest dreams, guided by beings who had made that journey themselves 500,000 years before.